Good afternoon and welcome to Pea Ridge, Arkansas. We are a little bit northwest of Elkhorn Tavern on the battlefield, and I'm standing approximately where the 9th Iowa fought on this side of the wire road north of the battlefield, and I'm walking through the woods back towards the tavern a little bit, but I'm walking towards the position of the 25th Missouri. Now, why is the 25th Missouri so important? If you remember earlier today, we stopped at Stockton, Missouri, and Stockton was the site in the summer of 1863 of a little guerrilla raid, the Livingston Raid, where Orville Welch was debating running for state senate in Missouri at the time of the raid, and helped fought in the battle, defeating Livingston, killing Livingston, and driving his men back out of town. Before, how do I put this? Before he ran for state office, state senate, Orville was a member of Phelps, Missouri Regiment. Phelps, Missouri Regiment was made up not entirely, but in a high number of refugees out of the southwest Missouri area and raised in Rolla, Missouri by Senator Phelps of Missouri. Orville had lived in Stockton prior to the war. He had taught school. His family had owned a little bit of land in the area. For some reason on the census in 1860, he's not mentioned as a farmer. He is actually mentioned as a school teacher explicitly on the census. And while we have no definitive paperwork or diary or letter, anything surviving of Orville's time here in Missouri and Arkansas, it can be best believed that, being born in Illinois, he was pushed out and refugeed out of Stockton towards Rolla with a large number of other people from the area. He enlisted in Phelps Regiment, and in March of 1862 found himself standing in approximately this position, which is on the edge of the Tanyard Ravine. And it would have been in this position that he would have seen his first taste of combat as Confederate forces under Price came up through the Tanyard Ravine and pushed the 9th Iowa, the 25th Missouri, the 24th Missouri back towards Elkhorn Tavern, which you can barely see one of the signs in the center of your screen. The other position that I'm interested in here, if you're familiar with my master's research that I've talked about a bit, James Van Zandt, the man I wrote my master's about, the tenant farmer in southeast Iowa, his brother William, who I have a picture of and will post later, was second sergeant and one of the gun sergeants for the 1st Iowa Battery under Captain Jones. While there are no artillery pieces at this position to denote it, the 1st Iowa Battery would have been in these woods on the other side of the Telegraph Road. Deployed, they put one section on in this approximate area. They put another section back in this general direction. They put two sections back in this general direction. And I've got a very descriptive letter written by Van Zandt talking about his time here at Pea Ridge. The 1st Iowa Battery took very heavy casualties in this position. They had one caisson that was exploded by Confederate artillery fire. And this was a very, very hot fight for both William Van Zandt and Orville Welch. Ultimately, they would have come out of these positions. They would have retreated back down the Telegraph Road, which I'm walking back down now. The 1st Iowa Battery would pull back and eventually end up back in Ruddock's Field, which we'll visit in a little bit. The 25th Missouri along with the 9th Iowa, the 24th Missouri, and other units, would get pushed back from this position and pushed back ultimately to a position just behind Elkhorn Tavern. Elkhorn Tavern is coming into view right here. We've got a couple of artillery pieces denoting a position. This might be Bowen's guns. I'm not sure. Their signage is good here, but there's not a lot of detailed unit information on the signage. So, the 25th Missouri would have ultimately ended up somewhere near this fence line behind the tavern as they were pushed back with Price's advance. Ultimately, they would be pushed back. Ultimately, they'd be pushed back down the wire road, the Telegraph Road, into Reddick's Field, where the March 8th line of defense was established. We'll pick things up there. And for those of you following along at home, I was just down the wire road. If you look over here to my left, that's the Huntsville Road. The Huntsville Road is very scenic. The Huntsville Road does not hook up with any other positions or road stops for the National Park Service. How do I know this? Well, the first time I was here 2 years ago with Jasper, I decided to take a little walk and misread the map, looking for the positions that we just visited. I thought that they were down there. They weren't. So 2 hours later, I walked out of the woods and finally connected with Jasper back at another parking lot. It was especially interesting because it was after hours. The park was closed and Jasper had no way of circling back to come back to this position. So, this is why I will not get lost at Pea Ridge. So, there we have it. This is the general area around Elkhorn Tavern. There's the tavern itself. And that's what we have for the first day's position for the 25th Missouri and the 1st Iowa Battery. The tour road itself is the Telegraph Road. You can see it in front of me as I walk towards it. The 25th, the 24th, and the 9th would have marched up this road coming towards me, deploying into line back behind the tavern for their initial position, their initial stand at the Tanyard. That's where things are sitting right now. I'll get this uploaded in a little bit, and we're going to do a tour stop over at the March 8th position when I get to it. So, welcome to Pea Ridge. Welcome to Elkhorn Tavern. And incidentally, I don't want to let this go without mentioning it. We're also on the Trail of Tears. One of the things I did not know prior to coming here was that this site was part of the road work for the Cherokee removal. The civilized tribes coming out of the southwest walked right past here. Some spent some nights here, sleeping on the ground in front of the tavern. But this is part of the Trail of Tears. It shows the interconnectedness of history. In some ways, it shows how small our country actually is. So, that's enough for now. I'll see you in a bit.